Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and help me welcome to the stage Laval, Belle, and from this moment on.
Yeah, from this moment on, it's not just a musical project just for the enjoyment of listeners, but now we've connected it to a mission to help the situation of kids in particularly Swaziland and Kenya.
Well, hello, Laval.
How you doing?
Welcome to the Cheron Moore Show, a segment I call Extraordinary Drummers.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's go back to St. Louis.
Okay.
Come on, let's go all the way back.
Go back to when I was a kid in St. Louis, my mom had 10 children.
Ooh.
9 boys and 1 girl. I never knew who my natural father is. So I had this kind of empty space, but I was a happy kid. I was always really, really happy. I used to have trash can tops circled around me, and I'd cut the tree branches off, and I would play the trash can tops in the yard every day. Just going around. I would beat on, remember the front of the desk in the old days, they had those desks and that hollow, I would play the desk like a bongo. I was beating on everything. You think they could have figured out and got me some drums sooner? It wasn't until my mom lost her mother, my grandmother, Belle Smith, that my aunt Isabel came from Omaha, Nebraska. I'd never seen her before. And she mailed me some drums through J.C. Penney's. I didn't even know how to set the drums up. I had the drums about a week, and my brother took the drums to church, set them up, and they had a little kids choir at Good Shepherd Church in St. Louis. People are going to remember that. And I just started playing, and my mom got up and ran out. You know why she ran out? Because she knew that I didn't have any drum lessons. So she's wondering, what? How? Remember, my aunt just mailed the drums. I took them to church in the first 7 days, and I'm playing the drums. And she's wondering, she didn't know, like David, that David killed the bear, all right, a bear and a lion with his bare hands. She didn't know I've been practicing. I've been rehearsing for my purpose.
How old were you then?
11.
11. So you started playing when you was 11.
11, yeah. I was just in the rehearsal. You know, if you could just get past your rehearsal. And now I'm living life stage.
And so at 11, you was listening to Buddy Rich?
No, I didn't get into Buddy Rich until high school.
High school.
But I loved the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
That was Ed Shaughnessy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved the whole big band thing. I loved big band. But once I saw Buddy Rich on TV, that was it. There was something about his strength, his confidence, his command. I mean, a guy putting drums out front, and I have that today. I was thinking, we did a gig the other day, and it's my band. I have my own CDs. And the drums are out front, and I'm like, wow.
You picked drums up when you was in grade school and then later on in high school?
I picked drums up in church. I never played drums in school till high school. I went to a performing arts school. It was, the first performing arts school in St. Louis. It was like Fame, TV show, dancers, actors. And the first, I went there in my sophomore year. And I didn't know how to read music, and they had what's called the Fundamentals of Music. So it's like a theory class. So I took that class, and man, they had a concert band. This is my sophomore year now, and you had to audition. You had to know how to read. I knew I didn't know how to read, so I just took this theory class, and I would go peep in the band room every day. And the next year, one day in the summertime, the year was over, and I went in and got on the drums. And I started playing. I was very intimidated with the drums and the music. I didn't know how to read music because I'd just been playing in church. And I'll never forget this, Cheron. I got on the drums. I just started playing, and then when I stopped, I opened my eyes. The whole school was in that band room. They started screaming. They didn't know I was a drummer. I was intimidated because I couldn't read. And the next year, they wanted me to play on everything, and the rest is history.
How did you move on to get out and playing out in the clubs and playing out in the world?
I used to go to a club called the Moose Lounge in St. Louis on the north side. And everybody knows about, St. Louis is where Miles Davis comes from. Chuck Berry, David Sanborn, Dave Weckl. I mean, these people, there's some folks come out of St. Louis. Tina Turner had her run in St. Louis. I mean, yeah, I mean, it was a great music town. They had a jazz club called the Moose, and I went in one time, and David Hines, that guy I mentioned, trumpet player, he said, pick you a song, listen to it, and then go over and sing it, because I had the jam sessions. So I picked All Blues by Miles Davis, which was in 6/8 time. I didn't know anything about 6/8 or 4/4. I just knew I liked it, because I liked syncopation. So it was, dun, dun, dun. I went and played, and they were taping that day on the radio of a jazz station, and the rest is history. They let me come play, and I learned to play jazz in that club. And Lester Bowie, Byron Bowie, the Bowie brothers would come in because they're from St. Louis too. David Peason's from St. Louis. So yeah, it was pretty amazing. I learned how to play jazz with old timers. They had that swag. And I think when I saw, now I was in the big band music for a while, but at 18, I saw Jack DeJohnette play. And that was it. I went away from the big band. I was like, wait a minute, this guy, to your point, he's got one mounted tom, one floor tom, a snare, and a small bass drum, 2 cymbals, and he playing, it sounded like 600 drums. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm missing. And that's when my drumming really changed. Of course, when I saw Tony Williams play, it was all over. So I switched from Buddy Rich, and I went into the Jack DeJohnette, Tony Williams era. And then I saw Art Blakely play, and then I got into the mallets. I used to do these long drum solos with mallets. I still keep mallets in my bag, and I think those 4 drummers, they set the bar for me pretty high. Buddy Rich's showmanship, Tony Williams' dynamic, Jack DeJohnette's swing, the cymbal. I mean, like, boom, boom, like. And of course, Art Blakey was the African part that I naturally already had. That whole African kind of thing and that was those 4 people. But when I got turned on to Steve Gadd, that was it. That's when I became a musical drummer.
How'd you get your first break out of St. Louis? How'd you get your first, not moving to LA? We're going to talk about that next. But what was your first break in St. Louis that the big boys started seeing you and would invite you into the larger gigs?
Well, of course, being a kid at 13 and 14, you're already. I was an extraordinary drummer at 13 and 14.
Yeah, I believe that.
No pun intended. And so, of course, a kid playing drums. I'm playing Tony Williams at 13. I mean, come on, I'm attacking this music like that with confidence. So that got the attention. I started playing with all the best musicians in St. Louis. So it was time to go. I think the big thing, one time I played with David Hines, and he opened up for Phyllis Diller, the great comedian. I was in the theater, and I didn't realize I had these opportunities. My godfather was on the level of like an Oral Roberts. He was white, and he would have people like James Cleveland and then Hawkins. I was hanging around the Hawkins at 14 and 15, but I didn't know, I had no idea that they were who they were. I'm just kind of playing with them. I didn't know. So I'm getting this exposure, and that's kind of how it started.
Tell me about moving from St. Louis. Did you come to LA first, or did you go somewhere else first?
My godfather moved to Miami, Florida, and so I went there first because he had a big church and I could get paid. And so I moved to Miami, and I started, playing in the hotel circuit. Back in those days, Miami Beach looked different. You had all the hotels, and you play in the bands, and you had to read. And I still wasn't reading that well. What I did do, Cheron, was I played with the Miami University of Miami, Florida. They had a real well-known band, so I'd go sit in with that band once a month. And then the Miami Sound Machine, they weren't called that yet. They were called Company. I was playing with them, and that's where I learned to play real Cuban and Afro-Cuban Latin rhythms. I was playing with Hector, a guy named Hector, who I later found out was the nephew of Alex Acuna. But I didn't know that. I didn't know who Alex Acuna was. So this guy taught me how to play a songa, a clave. He taught me the authentic way, independence. And so I guess it was a God thing, I had to make that turn. So I love sambas, songas, reggae. I mean, in Miami, it's a melting pot. You got Haitians, Bahamians. I was there 3 years, and I said, okay, I gotta get out of here. I got to get out of here. I need to play with some black folks. It was. And I used to play in a place called the Page 4. I don't know if you knew about that back then. And my first big break was Vesta Williams.
Laval, if you will, show us a little bit of the rudiments you were speaking of.
Well, as I said, the rudiments are the scales for the drummer. So when you're playing drums, if you're playing, traditional style like this, or, the Swedish kind of match grip or finger control, the key is making everything even. Like, look where my hands are, my fingers. They got to be exactly the same. And so your intensity has to be the same, and your height has to be the same. Everything. So I used to practice in a mirror. I used to sit and look. So this hand let's not sound different, but they're together. Right? So, like a flam. I spend hours working on the flam. Look. Right? So my sticks are the same height. It sounds like a single roll, doesn't it?
It does.
That's
yeah.
a flam. And it's because everything is, I can do it that way too. Or double roll, I spend hours, and even, what I would do is I'd turn the snares off so you can hear. So if you want power, you want, intensity, so the lower your sticks are, the softer, the sound is. It's all about intensity and proximity. The biggest thing is making your hands even. So I was right-handed. I would work hours on my left hand. I would put my foot here. I would practice it. So my hands are even. You can hear it. I'm literally even-handed. Or for a double roll, you want to clean up your gun. Instead of going, accent the second one. The trick I would say this, and I'm done. If you want to be a great drummer, a great musical drummer, practice everything real soft. Like everything. Everything you do just soft as you can. My friend Kevin Moe told me, because I produce records now, he says, when I'm mixing a record, I go home and I turn it real soft, medium, to listen to the whole track, and loud. And if I lose a lot when it's soft, lose what? Am I losing the intensity when I'm doing a double roll song? Look, I'm going to be way down here. I haven't lost any intensity, but it's down there. You should be able to play like soft. Those are threes in each hand.
Awesome. How do you get power and a big fat pocket at the sticks being so low?
Boy, you asked some good questions. For me, you always get pocket or back. Just turn your stick over. That's the old-fashioned way. Just turn this back. And drums is all about balance, positioning, and proximity. Like even your feet. Our friend in Dougal, who we just lost, used to call me Happy Feet. And my feet used to be really fast. I think they're pretty slow now. But it's like where you can't have like your kick drum here, your high. You ever see people? No, and then you should sit you should sit down like you're eating food. So you should set your drums where you're just kind of going like this, and you're not under any strain. If you got to do all that, then you're gonna sound like that. You're gonna sound like you're having a hard time. I was teaching a student the other day, like he would do a 5-stroke roll. Right? It's the rudiments work anywhere on the drum, and Steve Gadd was great at that. Steve Gadd changed drumming. I think he had a great, when you have an impact, when you change drumming, his understanding of rudiments, I'm telling you. So you say, how do you get power? Watch this. So you kind of move your elbows, like look. I mean, he would sit there and do a buzz roll, and it sounded like somebody tearing paper. I mean, you know, like.
Back in the day, did you know you want to be a minister, or did that revelation come later while we were on ministry?
When I was a child, I was 11 years old in St. Louis, thank you. At age 11 in St. Louis, my mom took me to a church, a charismatic pastor named Pastor David Epley, who's gone on. He became like my father. He literally mentored me. I saw him at 11 years old, and I saw a set of drums in the church. And one night in the revival, this white-haired preacher named C.S. Updegrove called me and my mom out, and he told my mom, he said, you know he won't always be playing the drums. And he asked my mom, he said, what did you tell God that you wanted him to be when he grew up? And my mom said, I pray that he would be a preacher. And I'm like, looking at my mom like, what? I just started playing the drums, you're tripping. But that stayed in my head. And when I got in my 20s, I tried to run from it. But on tour buses, I was always reading the Bible. When I was on the tour with Bette, you always found me reading the Bible every day. And no one told me to do that. It was just kind of there.
Well, tell us about the Noah's Art Publishing, because that's the umbrella.
Noah's Art Publishing is a new endeavor that I have. I started a publishing company. As you know, I've written 8 books. And my latest book, Your Gifts Are Not Your Purpose workbook, which I have today.
Could you turn it the other way?
Oh, yeah. It might have, I have it the right side, huh?
The other right side.
This is my latest book, Your Gifts Are Not Your Purpose. And as you know, the first book I wrote, Cheron, was the story about my walk in my music career. And I found out that my gifts of playing the drum is not my purpose. And so this is a sequel. This is a workbook where it will help you identify and execute your purpose.
Explain that a little bit. Your gifts is not your purpose.
Well, I teach that there are 3 categories of gifts. There's the natural gift you were born with. I was born playing the drums. A natural gift is something you don't learn. You come here with that gift. And then I explain in the book talents. Talent is something that you can, I'm doing books, I'm producing. Talents are where you learn to do things you like or hobbies you have, and it's also connected to your wealth. Your wealth is connected to your talents. Talents are innumerable. You don't get to pick your natural gift. And then there's the spiritual gift. Your spiritual gift is designed to advance the kingdom of God. It is designed for God's purpose. All these gifts line up and they facilitate your purpose.
What is that scripture? Your gifts will make way.
Proverbs 18:16. Your gifts make room for you. So my drum playing, like yours, made room for me to do this today.
That just feels like another whole show. That feels like we need to pull that apart.
I mean, well, think about it. I mean, look at you and I. We're both drummers, right? And you're behind the camera, and I'm in front of the camera. And look what our gifts brought us. I mean, we both started playing music, and I don't know your whole story, but I mean, I was in the projects in St. Louis. I've never had a drum lesson. I've never had a formal training in business. I've not had any. I've taught at universities. I've taught at the Korean College. I've taught at West Angeles Bible College. I have no degrees, but the Bible says the Holy Spirit will teach you in all things.
Tell me about Black Minds Matter.
Black Minds Matter is an initiative I started, particularly when we lost Trayvon Martin. I mean, my heart went out because he looks like my brother, my nephew, some kids in my neighborhood, and I just felt we had to do something. And Black Minds Matters initiative I put together to use to help incentivize kids of the 21st century in the areas of education, activism, and art. And so we go around the country, Cheron, doing concerts, and in the concerts we give away free scholarships. And we go on colleges, and we have voter registration. Our first Black Mind outing was in Jacksonville, Florida. And in Jacksonville, Florida, we registered 100 kids to vote for the first time in their life. And so you can, blackmindsmatter.com, they can go to blackmindsmatter.com, and everything's right there.
How do you translate that gift, that ministry, back to drumming?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Well, again, the the drumming, our natural gift, whatever it is, it gives us, it's the tool that gives us all of our experiences. So as you know, playing drums with all the artists like Bette, Midler, and George Benson, I got to travel around the world and meet people. That's that gift, that drumming gift that made room for me. That's a classroom. So my drumming gave me people skills. It gave me the opportunity to interact with people around the world. And that's that whole idea of your gifts make room for you.
Tell me a little bit about celebrating Black youth.
Wow, you really got some. You went and got some stuff.
I got some other stuff for you later on too that I found out.
Black youth was really, Cheron, the first time I started to work in social ministry using my instincts to build relationships with youth. And it was like a talent showcase I put together, but just to highlight youth only. And that, I think that was a result of me playing the drums. When I started playing the drums, it just opened up all those doors. And I thought, well, man, if I can just have something to celebrate our youth, and particularly African American youth, and there's nothing wrong with celebrating African Americans or the word African or the word Black. And so that's kind of where it came from. It's a talent showcase that we took around the country. We would go into places like Newark, New Jersey, and set up an audition, and they would come in and we teach them how to audition, and then we would extract about 12 acts from that audition, and then we would present a polished show, and we call it Celebrating Black Youth around the country, and it worked.
Okay. At this segment, I want to talk about that awesome body of work that you have. Now, I'm going to just list a few names here. As an accomplished musician, Laval has played for some renowned artists such as, now listen to this, I'll just take one of these in my career, okay? Aretha Franklin, Kev Mo, Bette Midler, Andre Krauss, George Benson, Chaka Kahn, Ernie Isley, Earth, Wind and Fire, Barry White, Engelbert Humperdinck. I mean, should I go on? Kurt Franklin, Billy Preston, Paul Jackson Jr., and all the plays you've done. What a body of work.
You know, I look back at that and I'm like, did I really get to do all that? I mean, did I really get a chance to share my life with those great artists? I mean, that's a blessing. To play with Barry White, with an orchestra. I remember working with him. My first gig, we opened up for Barney's, and in New York, and that was the first time I stopped and went, okay, I'm playing with Barry White and he had an orchestra. And our next gig was in Turkey with the Philharmonic Orchestra from London. So I didn't play with them long. Sometimes some of them were just one time. So I don't know.
But that's the other thing if we could talk about quickly. I'm about to erase something here. That's the other thing if we could talk about quickly. A lot of drummers, and I'm hoping that you would expound on it, a lot of drummers don't address that when it comes to their promo package or their portfolio. They think of a job as being years of working with that person and being up on some riser on the 42nd floor. And it's not, it's a journey. And if you play with that guy, like Herman said, behind a talk show or at church, you played with him.
Yes.
So put it on your resume, huh?
I played with Kurt Franklin maybe twice, and I played the drums. He couldn't have done that gig if I wasn't on those drums. I played with Kurt Franklin, and if you perform with someone, everything you did in your life up to that point got you there. And you deserve to be recognized for that moment.
See?
Don't skip that moment because you did something right to get there.
You know, that In Vogue gig, I know you and Derek Organ had that seat forever.
Well, Derek Organ and, I didn't have it forever, but Derek Organ and Rayford Griffin.
Oh, Rayford had that seat? Okay.
Yeah,
so there was
reading the gig.
Oh, okay.
I came behind Rayford.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, so who got me there?
Roman Johnson was MD in that gig, right?
Yes.
And you know Roman Johnson's, you need a Thomas guy with this guy. I mean, it's like
them.
In fact, Roman is like, and I'm hopeful to have you on a show soon, Roman. They knew I auditioned. There was a ton of us outside, and they auditioned. I guess you was in between or moving around or what have you.
Yeah.
And so they auditioned like a just in case guy, I guess. That's what it was. We all knew it. And we sitting down in the hall, and it's tons of names. I mean, these are no slouches. These are names. Some of them coming in on Harley Davidsons, and the whole nine. And we all saying, they know they want Laval. What are we here for? And that's what was going on in the hall. That's a true story.
And a lot of stuff I had no, I didn't know. I'm just trying to get a gig like everybody else. I'm trying to just work hard. I didn't know that was taking place.
Yeah.
I left Bette and went to that gig, and I didn't audition. They kind of gave it to me.
Now see, that's another name. You don't have Bette Midler down here. That's what I mean about this guy. His body of work is like huge, and his resume's got 4 people on it.
Amazing. I love Aretha Franklin.
What a voice.
I was playing drums with, I got a gig with H.B. Barnum.
Yeah.
Who's their musical director.
Yes.
And I'll never forget this. I heard about him for years, 20 years or so. And I did some little private gig with him, and he was watching me on the drums. He was, I checked him out. I've never been the guy to go up to stars and ask them for a gig. I just think it's inappropriate. I don't do that. I think your gift will make room for you. I think that it'll happen, So I did a gig with him. He called me to do a session. It never happened. My friend said, "Hey, H.B. Barnum really likes your drum player. He's gonna call you." And he never called me. I'm like, this guy never called me. He finally calls me 3 weeks later. He's got some session for me. I go, okay, we're gonna do the session. And then we did the session, and I go inside, and he calls somebody on the phone for this session. It's Aretha Franklin. And I heard Aretha Franklin say, "Who's on the drums?" And then I got the gig.
Wow. What was she like as a person?
I did work with her a few times because she didn't she doesn't fly.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, so my first gig was on MTV. It was a TV show.
Wow.
And it was amazing. Mm. And I never saw her until Showtime. Same thing with Chaka Kahn. I never saw Chaka Kahn until show. Wow. Now Chaka Kahn picked me herself. She saw me playing in the club, and I got a call from her herself. She handpicked. George Benson handpicked me. So, and these things, Barry White, the great musical director, what's that guy called everybody Babe? I don't know. I can't think of his name. But he called me for Barry White's gig. I mean, they called me. But God told me once that the time will come in my life where I would never have to audition again. I've never auditioned for anybody in 20 years.
Let me say thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for being on the Extraordinary Drummer Show, the Cheron Moore Show.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you for giving us a platform to share our life and our stories, and for teaching the next generation to come.
Wave to the people goodbye.
Goodbye. God bless. Go out and get them the Cheron Moore Show.
We love you. We'll see you. Bye-bye.